all is well. Thank you for asking.
Good.
Yeah. And so,
And BJ, I'm going to make you the co-host if I can. What's going
Why?
on?
What do I have to do?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
Right now it's telling me I have a good connection, but that
Oh, I
usually
see.
doesn't
Yeah. I'm
last.
having connection problems too. As a matter of fact, we had a internet outage last night,
Oh,
and I had
oh,
been having some problems, and I tested my feed, and it suggested that I make an appointment for a technician because something was wrong. So
wow.
I don't know what all that means, but that was before we had the outage last night. And I
Yeah,
suspect that
yeah.
when we had that 2.5 weeks of constant torrential rain, some of the
Mhm.
equipment might have been damaged or something. I don't know. But
Oh,
usually by this time in the week, I would have, like gone to the market or to Walgreens or something, and I haven't done anything since before
yeah,
Thanksgiving. And it really came down on me today that you're so restricted. You just,
yeah,
yeah. I put up
yeah.
I put up a Christmas tree and did the Christmas decoration thing. I started on my Kwanzaa table today, but um, I'm just feeling really sad that I won't see my family.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mason's birthday is coming up on the 16th, and um, he's very excited. One of the
Mhm.
things that um, we usually do is not do anything about Christmas before his birthday. But
Mhm.
I just felt like I had to do something. So, hey, Venita.
Hey, Venita. She's still connecting to
Okay.
audio.
So
Yeah.
I just, and today was, I did my reading this morning. Um, and it's cool here. It's like 60 degrees here,
Mhm.
which nobody's out at all. People think it's 30 degrees. It's 30 degrees for the Florida people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the thing is that looking at this for another 2 months
Right.
at least
Mm-hmm.
with these people, and um,
Yeah.
um, and the what I'm calling the Dunning-Kruger syndrome, where people's ignorance is invisible to even themselves.
Mhm.
And then I got hit with it twice on the show on Saturday night, Michelle. I was livid. I was
Oh,
absolutely livid after that.
I was ready to hang up. All that screaming and yelling. I was like, oh, it's too late at night.
I know, but it was just a
Stupid.
overwhelming kind of ignorance, stupidity.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
when you don't ask the right question. And then I went to research it on yesterday, and Clyburn brought in over $11 million for that water project in 2006. And he got a 9.8 score from the South Carolina Conservation Advocacy, top advocacy group in South Carolina, 3 years in a row, where everybody else got fives and sixes. congressional people, and they were arguing about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah.
I didn't have any information in front of me, so I wasn't going to engage in it because I had no idea what he was talking about.
Well, I thought Dr. Taylor was giving slam down the phone.
I know. He was very constrained. You know, and I didn't want to get suspended again.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what bothers me, and it's compounded by all of these PhD intellectuals who are consider themselves anti-capitalist, anti-corporatist, blah, 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 but they don't do anything. They just criticize it's every Black person. And that really, really bothers me. It's always the Black people we are laying these responsibilities on. I was just livid. And then on Monday,
as if we're no longer a part of the lower caste. Just because we
exactly because we got elected.
Right.
And then, you know, Black people talking about, and I really, one of the things that I really appreciate about Dr. Taylor is that he puts all of this struggle in a historical context. And he makes the point so well for people who are saying we're not making any progress. And, you know, when he said, look what we have done in 50 years.
That's all, yeah.
Despite everything.
Yeah.
So, you know,
yeah,
it's
I like
almost
hearing that point of view.
Yeah, I mean, I even said to Pascal Robert last week, I said, is it that you just don't like Black people?
Right.
Or do you think you should have gotten the opportunities that Barack Obama stole something from you?
Right. Right. There's a lot of negative energy in our community, you know, for understandable reasons, but it's really out of balance from my perspective, and you know, it's not helpful. I mean, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But let's I don't know where everybody is, so let's go on and get started. Of course, Leonie was supposed to facilitate tonight, but she's not going to be here.
Oh, okay.
I did think that Gio was coming, but she'll come in when she, you know, if she gets ready.
Is there a summary?
There is posted in the, let me see if I can get the link here, but it's posted in the session 14.
Yeah, I'm in there and I see one for the first.
Let me get the link.
Okay.
And I just posted it around 5:30.
Okay, let me refresh then because
maybe
since this morning. Okay, I got it.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay. So let me get my screens back together. Let's go on and get started. Venita, can you hear us? Are you there? Are you going to be on camera?
Yes, I'm here. I'll be there. I'll be on camera soon. Just trying to get myself together. Okay.
Okay. I know she's having some issues talking, so we might not hear much from Venita tonight. Anyway, welcome everyone to the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. This is session 14, meaning it is the 14th book that we are reading publicly and discussing publicly as a group since 2014. This particular book we started discussing on September 15th, and we're almost at the end. Tonight is meeting 11. We have 2 more meetings this year, and we'll be done with this book. The book is Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents, plural, by Isabel Wilkerson. And tonight we are focused on chapters 23 to 25. And you can learn more about the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle on YouTube, where all of our videos are housed, and on Facebook, where we post event invitations and related material to whatever we're reading. So I am Logan Michelle Odom. I'm located in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm happy to be here as always. And let's go around and do our introductions. Karen, you were here first.
Good evening. I'm Karen Johnson. This is my book. And I am visiting you from,
I can't seem to get the camera on you. Let me see. Okay, go ahead. Try it again.
Good evening. I'm Karen Johnson, and I'm visiting you from Atlanta, Georgia.
Good evening. I'm DJ Pete Graham, and I'm visiting you from Palm Beach County, Florida. And this is the book of the year, Caste, by Isabel Wilkerson.
And Venita, can you do your introduction? That's Venita Walker. Go ahead, Venita.
My name is Venita. I'm joining you from Cromwell. Welcome.
Welcome. Okay. And so Venita's going to keep time for us. And as usual, if we can try to limit our comments. Now, if it's just the 4 of us, you can ease up, Venita. But and next week the facilitator is Karen A. Johnson on December 15th, chapters 26 to 28. And here comes Kim B. And I think that's it. Kim is connecting to audio. Kim, can we hear you?
Hi everybody.
Kim. Hi, Kim.
Hi.
Love your hair. Love your hair.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
She's always got the new styles. Kim, can we have your introduction, please?
Yes. Hi everybody, I'm Kim Brandon. I am in New York and I'm delighted to be here. And here's my ticket.
All right. Admit 1. Okay. So tonight we're focused on chapter 23, 24, and 25. And I didn't write any questions since I kind of got this task or took on this task at the last minute. So we have more of a visual presentation for tonight, but I will read the summary. This week's readings begin with chapter 23, Shock Troops on the Borders of Hierarchy in Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents by Isabel Wilkerson. The author continues her exploration of the consequences of caste systems. Consequences include the caste clashes that occur when a dominant caste member believes someone from a lower caste has stepped out of bounds on a train, plane, or golf course, for example. It takes the opportunity to demonstrate their displeasure. Consequences of caste also include physiological manifestations that lead to premature aging and early death, as described in chapter 24, cortisol, telomeres, and the lethality of caste. These health consequences have implications for both members of the lower castes as well as upper castes. Whatever efforts we may employ to live with caste, our bodies pay the toll. Chapter 25, A Change in the Script, begins the section on backlash. A prime example of caste backlash Wilkerson uses is response to the first Black US president. From an air of hope and dream of post-racialism, the nation moves to a surge in overt hate group activity. And in 2020, we are still feeling the backlash from a presidency that ended in 2016. Karen, what I did was I just basically pulled a few quotes and related pictures and, figure we can make up our own questions or discussion points along the way. So Karen, would you start us off, please, with point number 1?
People who appear in places or positions where they are not expected can become foot soldiers in an ongoing quest for respect and legitimacy in a fight they had hoped was long over. In 2015, the numbers of Black women's book clubs, in 2015, the members of a Black women's book club were traveling by train on a wine tour of Napa Valley. They were laughing and chatting until they were ejected by police. In 2018, the owner of a Pennsylvania golf club ordered Black women club members to leave and called the police on them after white golfers complained that they were not moving fast enough. In 2017, a Vietnamese American passenger was dragged off a United Airline plane in Chicago, suffering injuries to his head and knocking out some of his teeth.
Thank you. Okay, anybody see a question or have a comment on anything from chapters 23?
Right. So I felt that her central argument, I thought she did a good job with her central argument in terms of stating that really looking at people being out of place if you're a subordinate class. And I felt that she gave good examples, even her own personal experiences, as well as these experiences that you shared. And I think the thing that was very compelling to me is, in addition to these, I remember the women on the book club who were on the train and how they were laughing and the assumptions that are tied to that when we think about Black women and our laughter and what have you. But even her own lived experience, Isabella Wilkerson's own experiences on the airplanes of the white male passenger feeling that he could just kick her chair and not have and not be punished or spoken to in a manner, knowing that's inappropriate behavior on an airplane, or even with the the flight attendant who felt that he can disrespect her body, and which speaks to a history of Black women's bodies are always off limits by white men in this country. Or even the fact that she wanted help to put her suitcase up, how the flight attendant, and how he refused and assumed that she did not belong. And so I feel that she gave good examples to say that the assumption is that you're in the lower class, you don't belong because you're polluting or because whatever else. And these are the examples that reveal how caste acts out to put people in their place.
Thank you. Yeah, and the example of slapping the Black baby. Yeah. I mean, I was just lost my mind. I can't imagine.
Exactly. Exactly. Wow.
Yeah.
What's done me more is her explanation as to why people don't fight back, don't call the police, don't file criminal charges against a grown person slapping a baby, which is actually a crime. Why she chose not to bring complaint against the airlines. Why no one would have seen her assault by that man on the airplane as a sexual assault. And I think the most stunning thing for me was to be able to identify with every one of those kinds of offenses. That they've happened to me not once, not twice, but many times in that form and different forms. And then I wondered about her as the author, as she portrayed her personal experiences, and wondered, is she all right? And then thought about what she has written, how she has written it, and was comforted in the fact that I believe that she is all right, but it has taken a great deal of her life's energy to be all right. So when she talked about the physical manifestations and even the medical implications of the kind of racial assault that we face damn near on a daily basis, because we are either victim or witness.
Right.
And I think that's probably why I'm having a really bad day. Just because I did my reading this morning, and I could just feel myself as I was reading falling down, coming down that slow escalator to that place of sorrow. And so and even to think that an Asian physician could have gotten that much exposure and his community actually did nothing. At least we had journalists talking about the golfing party and the Napa Valley tour, but his community did nothing. Nothing. And then I wanted, I thought about why. And what happened? And then I didn't make the assumption, but I thought about, could it be possible that in the silence by his community, they are rewarded?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Yeah.
it's a cultural
And,
thing too. It's a cultural thing as well from that
Mhm.
community.
Mhm.
Um, and so that perhaps might have been the issue as well.
Mhm. Mhm. And maybe
yeah.
that's why they have not been villainized in the same way in within the caste system, within the racial classes caste system in this country.
Mm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I watched the video today of that situation with Dr. Dow, and the 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 shrieks and the trauma from the other passengers who just had to witness him being dragged down the aisle because the airline had overbooked. Um, and I saw something that said United Airlines uh, had agreed to pay everybody that was on the plane um, for the suffering that they experienced just having to witness that. Um, and it is traumatic
Mm.
to witness, somebody else's traumatization.
Mm.
But that's why the piece about the silence of complicity, and why when Isabel was being um, assaulted, the other passengers had nothing to say. There were no shrieks, nothing. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if she's all right. I don't know if any of us are all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do the best we can with the situation that we have, and like the quote at the beginning, people who appear in places or positions where they are not expected to be can become foot soldiers in an ongoing quest for respect and legitimacy in a fight they had hoped was long over.
Mm.
But, you know, uh, um, Isabel comes from the middle class, and she certainly writes this book from that perspective and those experiences. But, since I am now well acquainted with the lower caste, that's no shield either from the mistreatment. Um,
Mhm.
and in an ongoing war, that we're just all so tired of. But it begs the question, for me at least, of, but how do you stop it? How do you stop it? I mean, um, today there's the news of, I think his name is Casey Goodson, a 23-year-old
Ohio.
black man in Ohio, shot by a police officer.
Who thought the sandwiches in his hand was a gun?
Yeah.
How does a Subway sandwich in a white bag appear to be a gun?
Because the issue is breathing while black. That, that
Mhm.
that is the issue. So it doesn't matter if you're on a plane or a boat or a train or bicycle. You know, it doesn't matter if you're on driving a car. None of that matters. The problem is you are alive, and we don't want you to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're right. And the example of the Nigerian man who was exploring whether or not living in the United States had lowered his life expectancy by 30 years because he had to live as a Black man in America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's astounding, you know, and oftentimes with my therapist, I explore the idea, especially when I was doing my show 5 days a week, whether or not processing and analyzing and having to bravely unravel some of this stuff for people was affecting my health.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I was beside myself Saturday night because I wasn't thinking about, you're wrong, you don't know what you're talking about, you're suffering from Dunning-Kruger syndrome. I was thinking about, how are we ever going to get through all of this if this is what happens when we have someone who can guide us, but you don't want to be guided because you think you're the smartest person in the room. So what does that do for our resources? People like Karen. Because we don't know the things, you know, if there's a thing, you know what you know until you find the things that you don't know that leads you back to unknowing what you know. So it takes you into a sense of helplessness. And helplessness takes you into a sense of hopelessness. And what is that? That's nothing but depression. And Michelle, I stopped saying it, but I used to say it all the time on my broadcast, that we are people who share a collective depressive illness. And I stopped saying that. Ruby Sales stopped me from saying that. For very good reasons, but I go back to that.
What were the good reasons? Do you recall?
Yeah, the good reasons were we are not ill. They are ill, and there are too many people who are vulnerable to the idea that if I am ill and nobody has devised a cure, where am I? And, you know, my mission is to build people with the courage to become activists, not to become people sitting on the sidelines saying I'm ill. So I went along with that. But
my mother used to say, the Lord never puts more on you than you can bear. And my response was always, well, what's up with those people in the mental hospital? Seems like they got a little bit too much. So I don't know. I think if Ruby had said that to me, I might have pushed back and said, you know, to some extent, I believe that whatever is going on with them, yes, I believe it's their illness. But I also believe that, like an infection, it takes its toll on us. And whether whether we are the generators of it or not, we are still having to live with the consequences of whatever that sickness is that they're carrying. And so we do our best to find ways of coping. And we wouldn't be here today, if we had not really mastered the art of survival under the most horrific of conditions. But that doesn't mean it's not taking its toll. BJ, why don't you read question 2, which is, making the link between all of this crap that we deal with and our actual health outcomes.
Question 2. Sub-Saharan Africans do not have high rates of high blood pressure, diabetes, and heart disease, while African Americans have the highest rates of those conditions of all ethnic groups in the United States. Even the briefest exposure is all it takes to activate the body's response. Among whites, the sight of a Black person, even in faded yearbook photographs, can trigger the amygdala, thank you, amygdala of the brain to perceive threat and arm itself for vigilance within 30 milliseconds of exposure. They can be in danger of worsened health and premature illness due to the threat signals triggered by the person's own unaddressed prejudice. A telomere is a repeating sequence of double-stranded DNA at the end of a chromosome. It is a measure of premature aging of the cells, and thus of the person bearing those cells, and of the early onset of disease due to chronic exposure to such stresses as discrimination, job loss, or obesity. People of color with the most education, who compete in fields where they are not expected to be, continually press against the boundaries of caste and experience a lower life expectancy as a result.
Ain't that a bitch? Yeah, it's taking its toll on Blacks and whites, upper and lower caste. And you would think that we had a common interest in trying to stop these dysfunctional, unhealthy ways of being. But I don't know. I mean, if 30 milliseconds of exposure to a Black face in a faded yearbook picture is enough to set off your brain waves, we're dealing with some serious stuff here. And so what does that mean for the 17-year veteran cop who today took the life of a 23-year-old man for carrying a sandwich? Are we supposed to have compassion for the cop? Because surely something in 30 milliseconds made him feel uncomfortable.
The answer is no. If anyone asks me, that you know I'm still here. I don't feel a bit of anything. I feel Mother Justice. That's what I feel. No more, no less. I have stresses in my life. I have to control my stresses. And if I can't, I'll pay the consequences of not controlling my stresses. I don't think anybody's sitting around with a prayer cloth for me, nor do I want you to. So no. Live by the sword, he should die by the sword. And if that was my child, it'd be my sword. And yes, for the people, the Bible throwers, I'll take my place in hell. But I would cut the shit out of him and gladly take my place. I'm sure I'll see somebody I know down there.
And I think is the issue, Venita, you know, that BJ raised earlier about why people don't fight back. You know, is it because they're trying to avoid their place in hell or their place in jail? You know, but it's you know, to me clearly some kind of fear. And
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Kim or Karen.
So I've been busy working, so I didn't really see the news or read the news. I just saw headlines. So what happened with the 23-year-old in Ohio?
Well, yeah. BJ, you want to tell the story?
Well, I only read one article about it, and he was coming home from the dentist, and he stopped and got sandwiches at Subway. And the story is not clear about how he became engaged with the police.
They were looking for somebody, but he wasn't the person they were looking for.
Yes, and they approached him and he fought back. He said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he started arguing with these officers. And one of them shot him.
Because they thought he was carrying a gun. And his family said the only thing he was carrying was sandwiches.
But here's the thing. I thought he had a gun. It's just a fallback for cops now.
Always.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a fallback.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he had a gun, and a 12-year-old was murdered in a park.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody they think has a gun, but you're shooting him in the back. Why? What's that got to do with whether he had a gun or not? His back was to you. Mm-hmm. What happened to disabling suspects when you feel threatened?
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that policemen are also trained the way they used to be trained. There was more, at one point, if I'm not mistaken, police had to be a certain height to coincide with their weight. I remember being younger and a cop would chase you for 100 blocks. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, of course, there were other things going on when I was younger, but in my area, I mean, especially, you know, I remember that. I remember them, hell, if you had a knife, they would still tackle you before they shot you. You know, that was not their first. So I do believe that there's also the way, not only do they have psychological problems, you have to realize too, a lot of them have little Napoleon syndromes. They were picked on in school. Mm-hmm. You know, they stopped breastfeeding too early. It could be a host of things, you know, especially with these white cops.
But that's a good point, Venita. The idea that they can't successfully pursue or flee.
Right.
So there's
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's just like that's just sort of the mentality that they have, you know. And again, I don't know how much in depth their psychological analysis is done as when they give them physicals, you know. I mean, you got some of them that are not stable before they become a cop.
Mhm.
And, you know, I mean, of course, I would never make excuses. Like I said, that would be Mother Justice for me. You know, I'll do, you know, Cheshire Correctional, do an open book club and read for the next 20 years. Hell, whichever way you want to do it is fine with me. But the point is that, you know, a lot of times people have a lot of psychological problems from the beginning. Not just, I'm not because in the black or white, no, just period, these cops. I don't know how much they look into their psychological background, because later on, when you know, there's sometimes you find out that, hell, he was crazy 25 years ago.
Right.
You know, and then the prejudiceness, the biasness, that's something that you can't measure, really. I mean, you can ask those questions on some type of pre-done questionnaire, you know. Do you have anything against black folk? Do you have anything against people that's almost black folk? Do you have anything against people that think they black folk? You know, you can write no, no, no. So you just don't ever know what you're dealing with. Not as being a cop, just being a human being. You don't know what you're dealing with. That's why I think we see so many things that are so, you know, not just racism, this also irrational behavior. This makes no sense. But when you're in that composition with a Napoleon complex or a mental, you know, disability or challenge of some kind, you can always fall back on, I thought my life was in danger. I thought he had a gun. You know, I thought he farted. And it was a gun. So, you know, it's just sad. Very, very sad, but it's.
But I think it's also in reading this book, I thought about this when I got to chapter 24, that we're reading this book in a period where everything legitimizes the mistrust that we had about this government.
Mhm.
And, you know, the things that you know,
Mhm.
but there is, but the evidence is always kind of sketchy.
Mhm.
But I think we're in this period, we have seen the United States government not only forsake us, but forsake everybody.
Mhm.
And they have done it through a screen and smoke of propaganda. But we as Black people, we always knew the shit was going on. And
Mhm.
here it is, we're reading Caste, and all the confirmation is sitting in front of us when we go to our jobs, when we read the newspapers, when we get on social media. I mean, it's
Mhm.
everywhere. Confirm, 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 confirm. So this is a really, I just can't tell you how difficult um, this book is to read, because
Mhm.
for 20 years, got on an airplane on Monday, and I might have gone to 4 states before I got back on Thursday night. And I did that
Mhm.
for years. And I wasn't traveling first class. So um, I just I just want every one of you to know. My daughter started reading this book last night, and she had me crazy. I was glad when the telephone went out. She kept reading, then she would call me, and reading, and she would call me. But I just want each each of you to know that I am so grateful for your hand-holding through reading this book. It's almost like reading the divorce complaint 10 years after you've been divorced. And you remember all of the things, the reason why it happened. So I'm just really grateful because this book is hard. This book is so hard.
It is hard, but you know, for me, and we have a little bit of a rift in our group over whether or not we're going to read fiction or nonfiction. And I'm always arguing for nonfiction. Not that I don't love fiction, I do love fiction. But I've been very concerned in my own life for a long time about what I perceive in other people as an absolute refusal to look at the truth. You know, I'm a Sagittarian, I guess I can't help myself, but I, in my bones, believe there is no way you can solve a problem that you cannot face. And I have, you know, I had a, you know, I've told you all a little bit about my experience with sexual abuse. And one of the really striking things for me about it was that I blocked it out of my head for about 10 years until there was a triggering event that caused the memories to slowly come flooding back. And it just really taught me how powerful the brain is, because really our brain is trying to protect us from all of those things it's not ready to handle. And, you know, so I think that if you really feel like you can't handle something, then leave it alone. You know, I don't want to drive anybody insane. But for people that want to look at the truth, I think some of us have to be able to do that if we're ever going to take the steps, make the steps, figure out what the steps might be to stop this train that we're on. And it's hard, you know, I know it's hard. And just because you look at the truth doesn't mean that you don't feel it. It doesn't mean that you don't have reactions to it and get depressed and angry and all of that. We do. But the reality is still there. And until we face it, you know, we're just nowhere. And so that's black and white. You know, I remember when I was a young woman being in all, you know, those encounter groups, BJ, of the 80s, where Black people were trying to make white people understand what the problem is. And, you know, they would end in white girls breaking down in tears and running out of the room, and Black people screaming at the top of their lungs, because I just want you to understand me. And we weren't getting anywhere. But I see on both sides of the fence a tendency to just want to look away, pretend it's not happening, and to go off into some delusional world that does not solve the problem.
Just a couple of things. I always have to defend fiction. I'm always going to defend fiction.
I know you are, Kim.
Because I think it gives us an opportunity to look at situations from a different lens So when we were reading The Night Women, I think that that was a way for us to see into a situation. And I just thought that it was very, very helpful. And I remember reading Night Women with everybody and how each of us kind of related to different characters in the book and what we would do. So I don't necessarily want to read fiction that is going to take me into a reality that's not healthy or not conducive to me advocating for myself. That I would not do that here. But the fiction that we read ain't no joke. So let's just.
Well, that's for sure.
That's the truth now. You gotta admit that. And then the other thing that I was thinking earlier, when you look at the weathering, I didn't know that word you could use weathering in terms of weathering of the body, and how generations before us may have experienced even more than we have without the tools that we have. And I'm just wondering, what are some of the ways that they resisted, and what some of the power in our DNA is, and how do we start to talk about that in addition to this? Because I just felt that when Isabel was on the airplane and the man was pressing himself against her, it just felt like she was trying to figure out what she had to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't know, how much do you risk putting some skin in the game?
Mm-hmm.
And even if no one else helps you, to just say, you really gotta move. You gotta move. You and your little dick gotta move. I can feel the little thing. You just gotta move. And now I think that when we were talking, when she was talking earlier about class and how it's the middle class Black man or woman who has more weathering than the lower class, because I think they let some of it up and out because they don't have as much to lose.
Right.
And so I was wondering, when she was talking about how she handled that situation, it just felt like she was protecting something the same way the stewardess and all these other people were. And I don't have an answer, and I'm not trying to criticize her. I just kind of noticed that she was in that band, that middle class band that says, I have to protect the class that I am in. And I just wonder if there was a woman who was not in that band, who was a less economic, would they have more to say to? I don't know.
A sister from down the block, Kim, you do know. A sister from down the block would have read his ass a new one.
Yes.
And that's what in the previous chapter, we were talking about, what do we tell our children? How do we teach them a language, give them a math? I mean, my parents were the kind of, from middle class people who had a lot to lose, were always with the message of, you got to be better. You gotta prove it wrong. You gotta do more than everybody else. You can't afford to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the messages. Make you crazy as shit.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, you merge those messages with other things, and then you do the algorithmic formula to figure out what is the causative result. But then you don't think, you're not standing there thinking about, if I keep taking this shit, I'm gonna have cancer.
Right.
But then you could be walking down the street with a Subway sandwich and not get home because you decided to say to the police officer something very appropriate. So it's such a high risk stakes, you know. And I do believe that when you think about police training, I think police are trained. I think they're trained to do the exact results that we are getting because I think when we talked about the tentacles, it's the one head, and it's the tentacles are definitely in that police department, and it can be a far right cult, the police department. So let's be clear that the second the police felt like he was stepping out of his caste, he was killed.
Yeah.
And whether or not the police union in Kenosha, Minnesota, would have helped to bail out Rittenhouse if he had been Black.
Mhm.
We just saw the other night here in New York where there was someone who drove their car over a police officer, and that person was not murdered, was not shot.
Mhm.
He wasn't shot. It was here in New York that the police officers were dangling on the roof of his car while the car was moving. And they didn't say, "Oh, I thought he was gonna hit me with the car." He was already hit with the car. You still didn't pull out your weapon, and your partner didn't pull out his weapon.
Was this a white person that was driving the car?
Definitely.
Oh, well, we already know that they're handled differently. I mean, we already know that you can go in a church and kill everybody in there, and they take you to Burger King to ask you you're okay, and then tell the nation how sad your life was. You're in a foster home and this and that. We already know all that. You know, this is not new. The problem is that we are no longer, and I'll repeat this verse that a person said to Michelle and I a long time ago, and it's very true. They're used to us keeping our head down and getting through the transaction. So when you choose to challenge them, like you don't have the right to ask why you're being stopped, and you do, it becomes an issue. And we were conditioned for so long just to save ourselves, to make it to the next morning, to keep our head down and get through the transaction. So you know how it is with white folks. When you pull up on them, everybody goes into shock. Oh my Lord Jesus, the Negroes are not liking this anymore. So we can expect that to go on for a very long time. And the more we get them to get used to the fact that we're not keeping our heads down anymore, to get through any transaction when you're hurting us, or attempt to hurt us, or kill us. It's like conditioning the way we were conditioned. That will condition them to know the next time I pull that trigger on somebody's brother or son or child and kill them, there's going to be a price to pay. So we have to actually retrain them, because we've been conditioned to keep our head down to the transactions, and they've been conditioned that that's what we're going to do.
And also, I think we don't have the level of crazy going on that they had. I'm thinking about the this post-election madness going on. With crazy people calling up secretaries, standing outside their home, chanting "Stop the steal."
Y'all don't mean to laugh.
At some level, you have to have a real level of lunacy going on to think that's the only way we can solve a problem. We have been trying to solve our problems like civilized people, but we're dealing with people who don't understand that. You all know the expression kindness for weakness, and that's a part of it. But Let's pull in this last chapter. Kim, would you read that little bit about number 3, please?
Okay. I'm not seeing it. Joe Wilson. Joe Wilson
Yes.
is saying you lie.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jan Brewer, she has her finger in the president's face, yelling at him.
Mm-hmm.
And she's the chick that said she was afraid. And then the suicide of Henry Hamilton, a 64-year-old South Florida man, killed himself because Obama was reelected.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Thank
about
you.
that. I went,
Me either.
yeah.
And who cares? That's why we didn't know about it.
Love you, Venita. I just love you, Venita.
I'm sorry, that's why we didn't know, because we really don't give a damn. We got our own stuff to worry about. You want to kill yourself, the Barack Obama, Hussein Obama's reelected? Let me get the knife for you. Girl, we got.
I might have killed myself if Trump had been reelected.
Now, see, that's different right there. We are relatively sane. And I do use the words relatively, because there's a thin line between being sane and insane. But I'm telling you, if Donald Trump was to be elected the president again, you might as well take your own life. And that's reason to believe. Yeah, even it's not to change the subject today. The judges, people are so tired of him, and of course they have to stay within the realm of the law. But even with that, the judges is like, oh, really, please? Your laws, Pennsylvania. Georgia is going. Arizona's never coming back that way. Just go away. So today he had actually another clobber over that swoop to the side haircut he got going on. That no, the fight is over. There was no fight from the beginning. You're a moron. Don't bring one of your little clown ass white girl witnesses in here anymore. That was a couple days back. She was definitely on some. She was on some kind of something. That girl taking drugs.
She was.
She was taking some dope. She definitely was taking something. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So today he loses. It's like, yeah. The point is, that's why I can't talk about Trump, because he sent you into a whole different universe.
Yeah.
And he's not even important. See how narcissist, sociopathic, old white men make this stuff important. Now here we talking about the caste, which is far more important to him. And so as that man name come out your mouth, all kinds of bad things goes to your head. You know what I'm saying? Kim, look at me, I'm crazy. She said, yeah, it's going to my head right now. Look at Kim.
Yeah. I'm sorry I mentioned him.
Yeah, please. I'm sorry. In my mouth.
But I had not heard of that Henry Hamilton suicide.
Black people all are going to rise up and kill all of us if they become the majority. What is that narrative that you are so terrified all the time? It's in your DNA. We were the ones that saw our relatives and ancestors hanging from trees. So what's the narrative that you are working with?
Mm-hmm.
It's logical, Kim. If you had committed the atrocities, if there's a word that goes beyond monstrous to human beings, hell, I'll be laying around all the time too. I can understand where they're coming from. Wonder when are these people going to decide they're going to take all of us out? That's a valid fear.
Mm-hmm.
That's not even insane. That's valid. The same way you have an enemy that you made. You might want to watch your back. Because at some point, when you do something bad to a person or hurt a person, they will rise up against you at the most inconvenient time in your life, in this case, in history. So that's very valid. So the one that committed suicide, that was the right way to go. Yeah. That was definitely the right way to go. You did a good job. And they should be worried. And that's a sane worry. That's the sanest thing I heard in a while. Yes, be very worried. Because people are
Then,
getting tired of you.
and then Jan Brewer, you know, her
Mhm.
comment about being a little afraid, you know. But see, that's what I mean about going through life in a delusional state.
That's what I'm telling you.
You know, we're not even looking at you know, when I see this, I see a glass of water. I don't know what they see. They're seeing something else. That's the problem.
I don't know. Too many drugs, too much rock and roll, too much
It's
Fox
a lot of
News.
things.
Too much
Yeah,
Fox
it's
News.
very,
I'm being silly, Michelle. My mouth hurt me so bad. I'm just laughing.
no, but it is complex. It is very complex.
It's too much.
You know,
Too
and that is
much.
why we have not solved the problem.
You can't get through to them.
I mean, if the problem could be solved easily, you know, Harriet would have done it.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, for sure. You can't get through to them. It's just too much. Some of it's innate. It's in their DNA right now. You know, it's in their DNA from centuries and centuries and centuries of committing atrocities. It's in their DNA. You can't do nothing with that. So basically, the only thing you can do is pretty much take folks out or wait till they die. You know, maybe like anything else in your genes, it may weaken as time goes on. But a lot of that stuff is innate, Michelle. Harriet Washington. It's just today. So you might not be able to do anything about a lot of it.
Yeah.
Which is why we're so compassionate and always ready to embrace and forgive. It's in our genes to do that.
Yeah.
And we have to really go against our own bodies to do differently because we're very compassionate, loving people. And sometimes it's a damn shame, you know, because no one's loving us back. You know, so I don't know. Good luck with trying to convince anything or have them, you know, recognize the errors of their ways. Many ways.
DJ, you okay over there?
Yeah. I just it's very overwhelming to think that we are people, and I was thinking while Venita was talking, we are people who have given our everything to this. You know, when you think about going back 300 years, trying to figure it out, trying to find not only condolence, but trying to find a way of being that is compatible with what we find. We've done it all. We've integrated, we struggled through Jim Crow, segregation, we survived the most brutal kind of form of slavery ever in the history of the world. And here we are, having made a victory out of dust. And it's still not good enough.
I when I was a young woman, that song, who was it? Lauryn Hill, Everything is Everything. Was one of my favorite songs. You know, I'm a words person. I love words, so the lyrics. And I thought about that expression for a long time. Everything is everything. I thought about it so long until I started seeing the application and the presentation of it in my life and in the world. And what I mean, for example, um, I started seeing all relationships as fundamentally the same. Me and my girlfriend, friend of mine, Leah, have this language called pimps and hoes, and it's like if you make that an analogy, whether you're talking about a personal relationship, a professional relationship, a relationship as citizens to the society, and just think about the dynamics of all relationships. There's all of this stuff that shows up over and over again. So if I think about Black and white America as lovers, so we're doing these family chats now in my family. And so the other day, one of my brothers asked the question. My father was married for 12 years to another woman before he and my mother got married. So my brother was asking, what is it that would make somebody stay married for 12 years and then just chuck it? Well, that's not even a question for me. To me, if you're doing something for 12 years and it's not feeling right, there's nothing else to do but chuck it. Well, obviously, I'm not a relationship guy. And I do believe that some level of effort is warranted. But, I do always have to ask myself, how much? So if I'm in an abusive relationship with you, whether you're physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually abusing me, how much effort do I want to put into figuring this out? At what point is the right decision to just end this thing? So that's much harder to do on a macro, social, societal level. And Black people have this thing about, we built this country and damn it, we're going to stay. But again, if you're in a marriage where your husband is physically abusing you, putting your life at risk on a daily basis, and you don't have any money, and you don't have anybody else you can lean on, what is the calculus there?
Elijah Muhammad attempted to present the same issues that you just talked about to Black people in the mid-1940s. And I suppose that resilience is so built into our DNA that it's very difficult for people to give up. He was ready to negotiate with the Truman administration, a state for Black people. I don't know how he was going to get, but in the negotiation, it was a state where Black people would not have survived well. It was like North Dakota, Oklahoma, or someplace. And then people were saying, I remember my dad telling me about this. People were saying, how you gonna get the people that's already in there out of there? You know, um, and so because it was exposed so prematurely to Black people rejected it offhand. But over the last 4 years, I've been thinking, he had something there. Maybe people could go to Oklahoma and commute to work in New York and go back to Oklahoma on the weekends or something, because this crap, what's going on here.
Let me tell y'all something. I was talking to one of my ex-sister-in-laws recently, and she had done some ancestry.com research, and she says, now my mother used to say there was Native American in her heritage, but she didn't know any details about it. My ex-sister-in-law says that she found that my mother was half Native and was born on a reservation. I haven't confirmed this yet. I don't know. But she said your mother was Chickasaw. So I did a little bit of research on Chickasaw. 38,000 people. They started out with 4 square miles of a reservation. Each person receives $84,000 a month, $1 million a year in income from the casinos. I said, should I start calling it my Black family? I said,
But one of the reasons that the U.S. government found the Seminole natives in Florida such a threat is because they harbored runaway slaves. And that is when the government decided, well, you got to go too. And it forced them into the Everglades, where the government really didn't have the kind of skill to be able to hunt people. And that is the only way in which they survived. So it's been a lot of schemes. But I think that, my daughter has a little posse, and they're all women around 42 to 46. And they have just decided that other than going to work, they're isolating themselves from white people. They don't want no white friends. They don't want them white women following them home or going for drinks or any of that stuff, going to lunch, none of that stuff. My daughter says, I just tell them I don't do lunch. And trying to figure out a culture in which they can posture to maintain the successes in their career. But other than that, they're not going for the culture of you gotta have, support system inside, blah, blah, blah. They're not doing that.
Well, yeah, and in this book, it was the lower caste, the immigrants who speak no English, who had the best health circumstances going on because they have their own, subculture and world going on here. Where they can be a support to each other. And yeah, I just, I get why we push so hard for integration. I think it was a necessary stage in our development. You don't know what you don't know. But as you all hear me say all the time, I always thought we were in assessment mode. and that there would come the plebiscite and Black people would get together and say, oh, how's it working out for you? What we gonna do?
Yeah. But the thing is that people will also argue and make the point that so many millions of white people voted for Barack Obama. And I make the point of Barack Obama embodied what they needed. And that their needs overrode anything else, because Mitt Romney was not just simply, and also the role that religious bias played in that race, in that 2008 race. So they were getting what they thought they needed, and he was giving them what he thought they wanted. So it wasn't, somehow race got blurred, and they were able to really say to themselves, as Wilkerson points out in the book, well, he's not really Black. He's half white. He has a different, he's a different breed of a person. He's not like the Black people.
I just wanted to I'm gonna have to leave soon, but I love the concept of your daughter BJ saying that she wants to pull back a little bit, because I think it creates this power base for us to exchange information with ourselves. And hats off to Karen, without going into what we discussed. I thought it was so empowering to bring a conversation to a group of people of color, Black women, and say, I'm experiencing this, what do y'all think? Because then all of a sudden you have 6, 7 minds saying, this is my experience. And I just thought that was so empowering for us to do that. And so I hope that's something that your daughter will do, and that we find ways to do that more whenever one of us has an issue, to say, okay, I'm going to pull together these 10 people and we're going to have a call so that everybody can kind of flush it out. Because, I mean, all of us have to bring so much knowledge to the table. We don't have to do anything alone. So with that, I am going to...
I'll pass that along, Kim.
Yeah, I just thought that was, and Karen, thank you for that. Thank you for trusting us.
I totally agree. That was an important session for me. So I look forward to next week. I started the readings, so especially in chapter, I think it's chapter 26, is really, really relevant to what's going on today, because she talks about 2016 election and doing an analysis of that, of why they voted for Trump. And it's so relevant to this election. So I'm looking forward to having our dialogue.
Oh, great.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Kim.
Bye, Kim. Have a good week.
Glad to see you.
Don't be coming so fly. Look like you combed your hair, unlike I never do.
I know.
I don't know.
I was in my, she was so cute.
I know.
This
whole thing about getting dressed.
I'll see y'all next week.
Okay,
Okay.
Karen.
Good night, Karen. Nice to see you. Have a good day.
Such beautiful teeth. I want beautiful teeth in my next life. What you want in your next life, Michelle?
I'm gonna stop the recording. Let me just...
Venita.
And we will see.
Venita.